Hello and welcome to Hot and Heavy, the Elaine podcast. I'm your host, Shivani Desai. Today I'll be talking about Season 4, Episode 5, The Watch. Hello, everyone. How are you doing out there? I hope everyone's doing really, really well, enjoying whatever it is in your life that's enjoyable and not stressing too much about the stuff in your life that's stressful. I mean, I think that's all we can do, right? I am admittedly a bit boring today, so I don't really have anything to discuss. So let's just dive right into the episode. The synopsis for The Watch is as follows. George surprises NBC president Russell Dalrymple and wins back the pilot deal after negotiating for less money. Kramer pretends to be Elaine's boyfriend to help her end an affair with her psychiatrist. Elaine meets a medicated Joe Davola outside her psychiatrist's office and begins dating him. Jerry negotiates to buy back his watch from Uncle Leo. Kramer enjoys the Cuban cigars George passed on to him. This episode was written by Larry David. So this episode is the second part, the continuation from the to-be-continued episode last week, The Wallet. So we pick right up where the last episode ended, which was at the restaurant with the Seinfelds. Morty, right off the bat, he's suspicious of this Jimmy Sherman guy, the jeweler who, for whatever reason, fixed Leo's watch in one day, but he's had Jerry's watch for over a week. Something fishy going on. A hostess walks by and Helen points out that she's pretty cute. She's very attractive, which then turns into very beautiful. Jerry thinks it stops at pretty. She's not beautiful. There's this whole discussion back and forth. Helen's running a bit hot about this. She's like, I should drop dead if she's not beautiful. I think that's a little extreme, Jerry says. She's all right, says Leo. The hostess is played by Jessica Lundy. Now, she's been in many shows and many films and even had her own sitcom in the 90s called Hope and Gloria. And I like her in this episode. I think I like the vibe with Jerry. You know, she can go toe-to-toe with him on some witty commentary. So I like that. And of course, later in the episode, we'll hear the issue with her that we will see in a later episode as well, her really annoying laugh. And that'll be a dilemma for Jerry in the future. But it's hilarious. I like that we go from just kind of this fun, very casual vibe, very grounded character to this over-the-top ridiculous laugh. It's really funny. And I just want to say as a side note, I always feel bad when an actor has to play a part and in the episode or whatever, something about their looks is discussed. And look, I mean, this isn't as bad as like, oh my God, she's a fat cow or anything. But, even in this discussion about, oh, she's not beautiful. She's okay. She's all right. Like, I don't know. It makes me cringe a bit for this character. And I don't know. I mean, at the same time, I would take a role like that in a heartbeat. They could call me hideous, but if it means guest starring on a show like Seinfeld, I am down. Moving on, we are in George's car, and Susan breaks the news that Russell said to hell with them and even pounded on his desk when he found out that they passed on the deal. And George, classic George move. He tries to blame someone else. This was all George's doing. Jerry was perfectly fine signing the deal as it was. But, no, George said he's negotiating. And, well, as soon as it doesn't go George's way, he blames Jerry. He was quoting him about being insulted. I'm never insulted. Come on, why won't he counteroffer? This is how it works. And Susan says Russell doesn't like to play games. George, completely desperate, says, well, I need to get in touch with him. She says, you'll have to wait until Monday. No. I need to talk to him now. What's his address? Susan laughs at him. I can't give you that. Well, her planner is right in front of them in the car. So George tries to snatch it, and they have to, of course, play a little tug of war with Susan's planner. Very mature. All right, next, we finally see Elaine. We're in Kramer's apartment. Elaine is discussing how Restin wants to talk to Kramer. She couldn't get out of it. And she just needs him to call Restin and say, you're my boyfriend and we're in love. He's like, yeah, I can do that. I'm your boyfriend. Now, have we been intimate? Yeah, we've been intimate. How often do we do it? Elaine's like, Kramer, how is this important? Then Kramer brings up a good point. I mean, he's a psychiatrist. This is the type of stuff they talk about. She says, okay, we do it 5 times a week. Ooh, baby. And so Elaine wants to know, okay, well, what are you going to say? And Kramer doesn't want to reveal it. He says, I don't rehearse, okay? I'm going to just say what I say, like Gleason. Gleason never rehearsed, referring to Jackie Gleason of the Honeymooners. So then he ends up calling him and he has a pretty forceful start to the conversation, says that we have a little problem here. And we will need you to cease and desist so that they can pursue their courtship unfettered. Elaine loves it. She's sort of like, whoa. Then we don't hear the side of the conversation, but clearly Restin is saying stuff to Kramer. And Kramer says, well, oh, okay. I didn't think about it that way. And basically, Restin insists that they meet in person. And he supposes he could. He ends the phone call and tells Elaine that, he wants to get together. Elaine freaks out. Why didn't you just say no? Oh, that's interesting. The purpose of this scene, it's the continuation of Elaine's plot, trying to get out of her relationship with Dr. Restin. And my take, we get this rare Kramer and Elaine solo scene. And I always love when they're together. Unfortunately, Elaine doesn't really get too much of the comedy here. There's the funny moment with the number of times they've been intimate, but, Kramer gets the laugh line with the, oh, baby. And this is kind of indicative on how the rest of the episode goes for JLD. Not a lot of comedy, unfortunately. But I do like how they keep the whole mental power thing going with Dr. Restin. That's what Elaine said about him in the last episode. So he clearly has that power, but he also has it to persuade Kramer to meet with him to chat. And so it's not just Elaine. He can persuade someone like Kramer as well. And I do like Kramer's response of the, oh, well, that's interesting. Sort of like he really doesn't understand how he agreed to this, meeting. But he did. Next, we are back at the restaurant, and the hostess is asking everyone how they liked their food. And after she walks away, Helen reprimands Jerry for not flirting back. She was clearly flirting with him. Oh, man, too much pressure. Who wants to flirt in front of their mother, right? Leo goes to the bathroom, and the check comes. And Morty, again, just like they did at the gas station, he starts fighting with Jerry about paying the check. And Jerry says, I would like to see how you do this. You have no wallet. Because if you can do this, the whole monetary system is obsolete. Frustrated, he gives the check to Morty and says, well, you know what? I got to go to the bathroom. In the bathroom, Jerry confronts Leo about the watch. And, he doesn't say it's his, but he says that he would really like to buy it for a friend of his. Leo kind of blows it off and tries to exit the bathroom. Jerry grabs his arm and says, all right, I got a little proposition for you. We have a series of short scenes next, so I'll just kind of go through them. George is now in the lobby of Russell's place, of his building. Clearly, he won the little tug of war with Susan's planner. And the doorman says he has a George Bonanza here to see him. It's one little thing, but I absolutely love the George Bonanza. I think it's hilarious. Costanza. George ends up grabbing the phone because it sounds like Russell says, no, just tell him to call me Monday. So then Russell tells him, fine, come on upstairs. We move on. Morty is trying to convince the maitre d' at the restaurant to let him send him a check later, not pay now, because he cannot let his son pay for his dinner. He just can't. And I like the maitre d' in this scene. He's like, I can't get involved with you and your family. That was a really bad French accent. I apologize. And then we move to the outside of Restin's building. Kramer and Elaine arrive. Kramer is very distracted by the door being on an angle. It's architecturally incorrect. I mean, if only we had a fake architect to confirm that in George, or Art Vandelay, excuse me. Moving on, we are now in Russell's apartment. George arrives just as Russell and his lady friend are about to sit down to dinner. And this woman is Cynthia. George meets her and makes just really awkward, dumb conversation about a variety of things. Veal, stairs in an apartment, It's just uncomfortable. It's like, shut up, George. Russell just asks, very deadpan, how'd you get my address? That's fair. That's fair. Jerry, Jerry has everyone's address, even has Brando's address. What? Russell's trying to get him to cut to the chase. What is this about? You want to talk about the show? George says it was a huge misunderstanding. I thought I knew what Jerry wanted, but you know what? We are willing to do it for the $13,000. And Russell says, well, it's too late. They've already made a deal for another pilot. George won't back down. He keeps going, knocking down the price. $10,000, $8,000. Finally, Russell agrees. George exits and then, of course, knocks again. And in one of the most George moves ever, asks to use Russell's bathroom. And I hypothesize he might not even need to use it, but he wants to see what a bathroom in this NBC executive, very fancy apartment looks like. That's why George wants to see it. The woman in this scene, Cynthia, is played by Mimi Craven. She was in Nightmare on Elm Street and a few other horror flicks, which is no surprise since she was married to Wes Craven for a few years in the 80s. She's apparently best friends with Sharon Stone, and she's perfectly fine in this scene, snobby and annoyed as that kind of a character would be at someone like George, so I think she does a great job. Next, we're back in the restaurant bathroom. Leo isn't budging. He likes the watch. Jerry, I would give it to you, but I just happen to like it. You don't see a band like this anymore. Finally, they land on $350, and as they're exchanging the money and the watch, Morty walks in and catches them. We're back to Restin's office/office building. Kramer has arrived in his office and attempts to sit in the leather chair, and he does sit in it, but it farts the entire time he's sitting. Kramer asks for a decaf cappuccino when he's offered anything to drink, and he says, well, this is an office. We don't have that. Well, that's true. Then Restin wants to know all about Kramer and Elaine, and we have an extraordinary situation, Kramer says. Meanwhile, outside, Elaine meets a man. He's singing a song as he walks by, and she joins in, harmonizes with him. That gets his attention, of course, and she says, wow, you have a terrible voice. He's amused, and he can't place it, but she seems very familiar. And then we see flirty Elaine emerge, and she says, yes, well, my face is on Mount Rushmore. I replaced Teddy Roosevelt. Trustbuster. Bust this. Back in Restin's office, Kramer and Restin are laughing. They've had a discussion. Looks like Restin has convinced him to give Elaine up. As Kramer says, you and Elaine will be very happy together. And then Kramer offers him a cigar, and he gladly accepts. Back outside, Elaine is now giving her number to this man, and she can't believe it. She never does this. You're not some kind of nut, are you? He says, I don't think so. And they have a good laugh. The purpose of this scene, we see the beginning of a new Elaine storyline that will pick up again in a couple episodes, her involvement with Crazy Joe Davola. And my take, I'm not a fan of this scene, to be honest. Of course, I love when flirty Elaine makes an appearance, but the entire Mount Rushmore thing is really dumb. And honestly, because I'm a 10-year-old inside, the most entertaining thing about these series of scenes was the farty leather chair. That's all I can say. All right, moving on, we're back at the restaurant, and Jerry is echoing what Elaine just said, that he never does this because he's getting the hostess's phone number. She says she does it all the time. She's very desperate, but she actually had her eye on Leo. This is sort of the fun little back and forth I was talking about. And then Jerry cracks a joke as he's leaving about fish. You know why fish are so thin? Because they eat fish. And oh no, she laughs. Her laugh is awful. It is really unattractive. And Jerry leans back with a look of disgust. It's pretty funny. All right, now we're back at Restin's building. Kramer exits the building and Elaine asks what happened. Well, Kramer, he's glowing about this interaction and he says he's such a great guy. And she's like, what? Okay, great guy, but did you talk about us? Well, the conversation sort of fades out as the camera pans up to the window of Restin's office and we hear just the voices of Crazy Joe Davola and of Restin. So Joe Davola says to Restin that he's in love. Just met her outside, and she's the most beautiful woman he's ever seen. Her name is Elaine. And Restin asks, Did you say Elaine? Next, we are at Jerry's apartment. Jerry apologizes about lying about the watch. I feel like this is a relatable moment. I think, especially with our parents, we might just, flippantly tell a fib or a lie and not think it's a big deal. But then once they find out, you feel so awful, especially about something like this. I think, Jerry wanted to spare their feelings, but ultimately he gets caught. And, even Helen says, well, you didn't have to throw it out. George buzzes. And Helen asks about the NBC deal, and Jerry says that, well, George turned it down. Gee, turned it down? Why? Ted Danson. And Jerry says, hey, you know what? We may end up with more money. He might know what he's doing. George enters and greets them, and Helen is so disgusted. What's the matter with you? But George has good news. They got a deal. Oh, Morty is so proud of him. George, he knows how to talk to these people. No one's taking advantage of Georgie, huh? George, of course, knows he didn't really make a great deal. He says, Morty, please. And Jerry says, well, what did they get? $8,000. That's for the both of us. What? $4,000 apiece? So you held out for less money. George has to admit it. I was right. You were wrong. My understanding of negotiation is to get the price to go up. This is how they negotiate in the bizarro world. Oh, well. Then we hear Leo buzz. He is there to take Morty and Helen to the airport. And Jerry gives Morty a gift, a new wallet, because he needs one, obviously. His wallet was gone in the last episode. Of course, this just affirms Helen's belief. How can anybody not like you? The last scene of the episode, we are in the street, and Leo's there getting all their luggage into his car. They got a prime parking spot right in front of Jerry's building. Almost hates to give it up. Jerry asks Morty, do you need more money, Dad? And he's like, Jerry. So they all say goodbye. And as they're walking away, Jerry tells George that he put $400 in that wallet because he knew he would never accept the money outright. Oh, man, George says, I wish I could see the look on his face. Well, then we pan back. Morty is disgusted by this wallet. Can you believe it? It's got Velcro. He tosses it into the garbage can. And, of course, Leo, the procurer of trash, picks it up. And that's where we end the episode. So I'm going to take a quick break, and I will see you on the other side. Being a collector is exhilarating. The searching, the bidding, the acquiring. But there are limits to what you can collect. And really, how many bobbleheads and coasters can one person have? That's why you need an entirely new way to admire the object of your collection. Introducing Stoneface, the company that carves faces in stone. We have hundreds of faces available, all of them expertly sculpted to perfection. Historical figures like Flintstone Churchill, Florence Nightingale, sports stars like Lamar G. Odom or Kelly Slater, celebrities like Jennifer Aniston or Joseph Granite-Levitt. And be sure to shop our clearance sale on our Obvious collection. Save up to 60% off on Sharon Stone, Emma Stone, Barack Obama, Stone Phillips, and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. We at Stoneface also provide a custom service where you send us a plaster mold of any face and we will pound it into a rock. Visit our website, myfaceishard.rock, and open the door to an entirely new genre of collectibles and keep this thing going. You better build some more shelves. Some say it's hoarding. Some say it's OCD and you need help. But you know it's a harmless hobby, not an addiction, and it makes you feel safe from past trauma, and every piece in your collection is like a little piece of love, and anyway, it's a wise investment that will pay off one day. You've got the dolls, the trading cards, the Pez dispensers. Now it's time for Stoneface, because every collection needs to be rock hard. And we're back. Okay, so there were really no extras for this episode to speak of, so I am going to move on to Contributor Corner. Todd, a new contributor this week. Yay, Todd! So, just to introduce you guys to Todd, Todd and I knew each other a long time ago, longer than I'd like to admit, in fact. We used to work together at a music company. Todd and I bonded over Seinfeld. We would quote it all the time. In fact, I remember feeling such a kinship to him when he told me that he had the entire series on VHS. And this was before, I believe this was before the DVDs came out. But I think he got them on eBay. I don't know, Todd, you can email me if I'm wrong. But anyway, we are extremely huge fans of Seinfeld, and that was one of the things we bonded over. He's a great guy. I miss him. We used to lunch quite a bit back in the day. We would bitch about work, talk about Seinfeld over Greek salads. Good times. Anyway, Todd is from Chicago, and a little background about his Seinfeld fandom. He says he's been a fan for years. He's been watching Seinfeld religiously for over 25 years, and why he loves it. The writing, the overall show about nothing motif, and the characters, their quirks, the one-liners. He says to him, Seinfeld is the American sitcom at its absolute zenith. And how did he get into it, you ask? Well, his aunt would not stop talking about the show back in the early to mid-90s, and, well, that piqued his interest. And he got into the show after the first 2 to 3 seasons where, the show really got its comedic footing. And then Todd mentioned some other things. The Friends versus Seinfeld, which is the better comedy debate, is a barometer to knowing if I'll get along with someone or not. The show is a good reason why Shivani and I became friends and have remained so despite not really seeing each other for more than 15 years. Oh, okay, here we go. He said, I bought the bootlegged eBay DVDs of taped off the air broadcasts of the entire series in the early aughts because the official DVDs took forever to be released. That's gold, Jerry. Gold is an often used catchphrase with friends. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Oh, I love it, Todd. Yes, I know. Gosh, we never got tired of it too. Sometimes we would just go back and forth in an email, typing out lines of dialogue. I mean, this is just the peak of Seinfeld nerddom, but I'm not ashamed. I will tell you that much. Now, specific to Elaine, the things that Todd loves about her dancing skills, her affinity for overshoving people, and her unending desire to one-up Sue Ellen Mishke. All great things. Okay, so Todd's comments for this week. Now, he actually gave me comments for the last episode, but given this is a to be continued, I will allow it. He does talk about how Elaine didn't appear in the last episode, in the wallet one, until like halfway through and then takes over for the rest of the way. I totally agree. She had way more to do in that episode. He loves the classic Federal Express entrance as she, enters from maternity leave. And he does point out this is an 80s trope of sleeping with your shrink. Like, did everyone do this? I think I need more information. Maybe I didn't realize this was a trope, but you know what? I'm going to trust you, Todd. And Todd also says, the writing for JLD started to improve in season 3, but season 4 really feels like where the writers started to hit their stride and treat her like a regular cast member and not the girl character on the show. Agreed. I think just as a whole, this series really takes off in the 4th season. And like I said last week, I feel like we've made it through the muck of like the earlier stuff that is a little tough to get through. To use your term, Todd, get their comedic footing and really get a hold of these characters. But yeah, so I totally agree. JLD gets so much more like just richer comedic stuff in this season. And I just can't wait to get into it. Thank you so much, Todd. I hope you make it a habit to keep sending in some thoughts. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Moving on to Greg, our reliable contributor every week. Greg. All right. So Greg says, I love how we're seeing more of Elaine and Kramer together. They do seem to help each other out when they need to get out of one of these predicaments. The last time being when Elaine helped Kramer get his jacket back. The scene of them plotting the phone call to the doctor on Kramer's little love seat and the phone call itself are well done by both, and I especially enjoy Elaine's joy as Kramer goes into the phone call, bouncing in her seat at the things coming out of his mouth. Yeah, I like that moment too, where she's kind of like, oh my gosh, I can't believe he's saying this. He's doing such a good job, which quickly turns after she finds out he has to go meet him in person. What? Secondly, Greg says, Elaine's whole conversation with Joe Davola bothers me. It's not so much her performance as it is the writing. And also, why would she be attracted to that guy? are are his opaque hair and pasty skin turning her on? She's way out of this clown's league. I see what you did there. Sad clown. You know what? This just goes back to my whole thing. Like Kramer, Jerry, and George, they all date super hot women who are way out of their league. I'm sorry. It's just a fact. And then Elaine has to settle for someone that looks like Joe Davola. I mean, are you kidding me? And agreed. I mean, Elaine being attracted to this guy. I mean, the only thing I will concede to as a character, maybe motivation for her, she's been in this kind of controlling, maybe slightly borderline abusive relationship with Restin. So maybe just a nice guy with a better vibe giving her a little bit of attention. She likes it. I don't know. And then I would like to point out her husband in real life. I don't know. I think he kind of looks a little bit like this actor, Peter Crombie, who plays Joe Davola. I mean, he's taller, he's pale, he's a redhead. And I'm saying this because this interview she did on Conan O'Brien's podcast, Conan kept insisting, Julia, you're a beautiful woman. And it warms my heart that you're attracted to people who look like me. I mean, I'm tall like your husband. I'm pasty. I've got the red hair. And she's just like, yeah, okay, easy there. And it was just Conan being funny. So it was really funny. Anyway, moving on to Greg's last thought. I just want to say again that Jerry's parents and uncle are the best. Perfectly cast. And I love how Jerry has this family outside of his 3 friends that come in and out of his day-to-day life instead of being omnipresent. They show up here and there over the entire series and never overstay their welcome. Agreed. The stuff with the Seinfelds and Leo, I love it. And I love their dynamic together. I mean, that dinner where Leo is so mad and you can just tell Leo and Morty have this combative relationship. They've never been close. They've never really liked each other. It's never explained, but we just see it in action and it's so effective. I love it. And to your point, Greg, yeah, I think them just showing up in, when it's right and in controlled doses, that's what makes it so successful. We never get this kind of like, oh God, we have to deal with them. And I said that in the last episode too. And it's a tribute to the talent of this cast and the writing of it. So yeah, I completely agree with that sentiment. Thank you so much, Greg and Todd. And if any of you out there would like to be a contributor to Hot and Heavy, please email me at elainepodcast@gmail.com. That's elainepodcast@gmail.com. Moving on to my favorite Elaine moments. I really have to scrape the bottom of the barrel here since JLD gets very little to work with overall. But the scene with Kramer, that's the best part for JLD and in the episode. Specifically in that scene, I get mildly amused when she goes, oh man, after Kramer says his, oh baby. I just feel like it could have been so much better. But that's all we got from Elaine. And in my final notes, this episode has funny moments that don't involve Elaine at all. I mean, I like George's plot the best here, for sure. Jason Alexander totally shines in his attempts with Russell. Plus, I have to say, Bob Balaban, who plays Russell Dalrymple, he's incredible. He's been in all those Christopher Guest movies. He's incredible, just so funny. Perfectly cast. All the watch stuff is stupid, but I like the discussion Jerry has with Helen about the hostess. It's a classic mother who probably thinks her son is a little too, picky. She wants him to settle down. So that's a very, I think, natural conversation that happens between mothers and sons. And, again, she's not this overbearing, annoying mother. She's just like, hey, she's attractive. But she gets a little fired up when he kind of dismisses her, right? Like, come on, this is why you're still single. So I think it's very natural. This episode is not a bad episode at all, but it is jam-packed with so many different plots, so many subplots. Of course, my issue being that Elaine's not in a lot of the funny parts. So on that subject, an Elaine scene swap, and it's not really a swap, I really think they could have benefited to give JLD some more stuff to work with. And I want to say too, I'm recognizing the fact that maybe they were easing JLD back into her schedule. She just returned from maternity leave. So I think that's a feasible thing. Maybe that's why, she didn't have a ton of screen time. But I do think just my idea, that if that scene with Restin meeting Kramer in person, if Elaine was also in that little meeting, that could have been really interesting. I'm not a fan of the whole Restin storyline in general, but that actor is really strong, the guy who plays Restin. And, paired up with a Kramer and Elaine kind of thing, especially if, Elaine had to act like she was in love with Kramer. That seems like a lot of comedic opportunity to me and an opportunity missed. And they still could have had the Davola moment later, like maybe Kramer went off, home and she had to walk a different way and still runs into him outside of the building. I don't know. But, I know that they had to kind of plant that whole beginning of that whole storyline for Elaine. Very doable. At any rate, my assessment is the same with any Elaine Light episode. More Elaine! And I think that's all I can say about The Watch. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you next time.